Today's target will be translating expressions. By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to recognize keywords and phrases that represent mathematical operations, like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. You'll also be able to translate sentences and word problems into algebraic expressions and equations. Today we're going to focus more on simple sentences, give you some tools, some knowledge that you can then use to work on word problems. We will focus on more word problems, kind of building what we do in today's video lesson in class. So let's start with some basic words and phrases for addition and subtraction. For addition, you're going to look for words like plus, more than, increased by, and the sum of. Those are all words and phrases that are telling you to use addition. Subtraction is opposite. We see minus, less than, decreased by, and the difference of. So there's a few other words or phrases out there that are used less often, but should be able to recognize that it was addition or subtraction. But these are the key ones. These are the ones you're going to see more often than not. So let's look at a few examples. Okay, a number increased by 5. So we see this increased by. It's increasing if we're getting bigger, so we're going to use addition. We also see a number here. We don't know what this number is. When we don't know what a number is, we use a variable to represent that. The variable you use can be whatever you choose. It could be n, it could be x, it could be y, it could be your first initial, doesn't matter. I'm going to use x, so we have a number plus 5, x plus 5. And the second one, we have 3 less than a number. Less than is telling us to use subtraction. Now, unlike the first one where we had addition, addition is commutative. So x plus 5 and 5 plus x are the same thing. It's not the same with our second example. Subtraction is not commutative, so the order matters. When you have 3 less than a number, it means you start with that number and you subtract 3. 3 less than a number. If you have $3 less than I do, you're going to take whatever I have and you're going to subtract 3 from that. Okay? And then lastly, we have the sum of 2 different numbers. So sum of tells us to use addition. Now we have 2 different numbers, so we're going to use variables here. But because we have 2 different numbers, we need to pick 2 variables. Once again, the variables don't matter. You can use whatever you like, but they can't be the same. So x and y, n and m, a and b, whatever you want. So I'm going to use x plus y. Let's look at multiplication and division. The words on the left, multiplied by, times, the product of, or something like twice. Those are all instances of multiplication. Twice being very specific. Twice means you're multiplying by 2. Okay. On the other side, we have divided by, the quotient of, and half. You also might see 1/3 of, 1/4 of, something like that. Those are all very specific dividing operations. So if you said half of a number, it would be a number divided by 2. Okay? So there's some examples. 9 times a number. Okay? So times is telling you to multiply. Multiplication orders matter. So I'm going to use x. I could do 9 times x, or we write it as 9x. We could write it as x times 9. A couple different ways you can write multiplication. Order doesn't matter. How you write it doesn't matter. The variable you pick doesn't matter. What matters is that you recognize that times is multiplication. Second example, a number divided by 3. Division, once again, like subtraction, order does matter. So a number divided by 3 would be x over 3, or you could write x divided by 3. Okay? It is not that. That would be 3 divided by a number. Okay? Next, here we've got one that's a little bit more complicated. The product of a number and 7 divided by 2. Whenever you see this terminology, the product of, the sum of, the difference of, or the quotient of, this of is telling you to use parentheses, so whatever comes next. So the product of, that means we're going to take whatever comes next, okay? You're looking for that and. There should be two things. In this case, it's the number and 7. Those are going to go in parentheses, and then you're going to look here and say, okay, product is telling me to multiply. So I'm going to have a number and 7, so 7n, n times 7, however you want to write it. And then we move on to what we have left over, divided by 2. So we could have 7n over 2. We could have 7n divided by 2. But the key is when you see that of, whatever follows it, there should be two things that follow it. Those are going to go in parentheses. Here's some special cases. You might have a number squared or cubed. This is an exponent. So a number squared would be n squared, or cubed would be x cubed. The square root or cubed root of a number, square root looks like that. Cubed root is similar, but it has that little 3 over top of it. And then absolute value are these horizontal bars. So the absolute value of a number looks something like that. Okay? All right, this is very important. You're going to pause the video here in a second. You're going to try both of these on your own. Okay? Once you try them both on your own, you can press play. Give it a few more seconds and the answer will pop up on the screen. It's your job to check your answers. Hopefully you got them right. If you didn't, that's okay. If you didn't get them right, look back, see what you made a mistake on. If you can't find your mistake or you're not sure why you got it wrong, make a note of it, put a star next to it, circle it, do something so when you come into class, you can ask a question and we can talk about it. Okay, so pause the video now. All right, for number 1, we had the product of a number and 5 decreased by 3. Remember that product is telling us to multiply. We see this keyword of, the product of. So that's telling us to use parentheses, the product of a number and 5. So we put 5x in the parentheses. Decreased by 3, decreased means subtract. So 5x minus 3. Number 2, we have the sum of a number and 9. Once again, we've got that of. So whatever follows, we put in parentheses the sum of a number and 9. That's n plus 9 divided by 4. So we use division. So you could have parentheses n plus 9 divided by 4, or you could write it in fraction form, n plus 9 over 4. Okay? If you have any questions that you weren't able to answer off the video, or anything we talked about in the video that you're unsure about, make sure you make a note of it. So when you come into class the next day, you can ask the question and we can talk about it and hopefully clear up any issues you have.